Welcome back. Today we're going to build and raise the post frame for the porch. I'll get into some of the design and build considerations a little bit later, but for now I want to cut the tenons into the top of these posts. So these are 6x6 pressure treated posts, and I have set the depth of my skill saw to the depth of the tenon that I want, and then I come back later and I chop off the top to the height that I'm looking for. The reason I cut the tenons the way I did first was because if I cut the top off to the right height, then the skill saw doesn't have a good landing base when I'm cutting the rest of the meat out of the tenon. So that worked pretty well. I just need to make sure that it matches the height of the overall crossbeam when I'm done. So now that I have it rough cut out, I'll take a chisel and go through it. I'll probably mention this a couple of times, but chiseling in pressure treated lumber isn't awesome because it's kind of wet. It's really, chisels are better in dry wood, but nonetheless, we can get the kind of fit that we need for what we're going for here. I had some leftover cinder blocks from when we built the foundation, and these are really the perfect application for trying to level this post frame. I want the whole post frame level and square on the ground as I'm assembling it because I don't want it to be off kilter once we raise it into place. So what I'm doing now is just measuring between all of the boards, and I think it's 113 inches between post to post. So I'm just getting that measurement all the way down and then bringing in the cross beam to get a sense of how it's going to land at the top. So you can see the tenon has been cut on the post, and now I need to cut the mortise into the beam itself. I've already marked where vertically I want the post to land, and then horizontally where the mortise needs to go. And then I'm just using a 3/4 inch paddle bit to cut through this. I'm staying well away from the edges that I want, and I'll clean that up later with a chisel. So for now, we're just really trying to get the meat of the wood out of this mortise section. This was actually going to be fairly problematic, I guess, but usually sawzall blades are horrible for this kind of thing because the wood, especially again pressure treated wood, gets caught up in the sawzall blade itself and it just reduces it from cutting well. But I found a pruning blade for the sawzall at the hardware store, and that was just ideal. It's got a really aggressive blade design, and it cut through this pretty easily. And then just gives me some room on the edges where I'll come back with the chisel and clean it up and get it to match that tenon on the bottom on the post. And so the tenon on the post will be flush with the top of this cross member when it's assembled, and then I'll be putting some either dowels or probably GRK structural screws through the tenon mortise division, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I'm doing that later. So now I've got the mortise cut out and I've got the tenon. I'm sort of just dry fitting this, so to speak, making sure that it flushes up and gets all the way down, and that I don't have any wedges that I need to clean up. If you can see, my chisel there on the left is sitting on that post as I'm beating the cross member onto it. That is absolutely horrible treatment of a chisel. You should always put it somewhere safe so it's not going to roll off into the gravel and mar the tip, but I didn't do that. So now I did dry fit both ends individually, and I felt pretty good about it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the entire cross beam on. And then once I get that on, I'm going to square the whole thing up again. I have some straps at the bottom where I maintain that 113 inch measurement so that the overall post frame is going to stay square as long as you can. There you can see the strap. This is the post base. So we have an anchor bolt that'll come up about 1 inch into the post. I'll drill some holes into the center of the post to make room for those, and then we'll put tapcons in the other 4 holes to keep those post bases in place. And those will be, they're set about 2 inches off the edge of the porch in any direction. And here you can see the finished product. So the post, after I slammed it in, looks like it might be about 1/8 inch over, which is just fine. And that tenon does flush up with the top of the crossbeam on the other side. This one lined up just perfectly. It's a little shaggy there, but still it's got a good flat bearing across the whole beam, and it'll be 14 feet in the air, so it'll be virtually invisible, and it'll be invisible for other reasons that I'll get into in a little bit. But now I just need to get the 45s in place. So similarly with the mortise, what I did here was I just started the cut with a skill saw to get a nice clean line, and then I used the pruning blade on the sawzall to get me through the rest. Then I just chiseled up the big stuff and just made it as flat as it needs to be to support the brace on the post. And so I guess now is a good enough time to talk about it. I'm not gonna pocket these into the post or the cross brace. I'm just gonna use the GRK screws. So there's gonna be three GRK screws, 6 inches on both the top and the bottom on either brace. And the reason I'm doing that is these are going to be temporary. I just want the post frame to be very stable and very secure, and I don't want it to move at all. But later, I will be wrapping these pressure treated posts with oak. In fact, originally I was planning on building these with the final 8x8 oak posts, but just issues with setting up my sawmill, because I don't have the sawmill currently set up to cut 14-foot long posts, and then the additional weight of getting it up, and then finally the potential of hurting or marring the oak as we raise it with the tractor was a concern as well. Actually, here I'm tying this up because I think I still might raise this with a winch. I have a winch set up, but as soon as I started trying it, I just decided that it probably wasn't safe, especially since this is about 600 pounds, and to do this by myself, there were just too many unknowns. So some neighbors are going to join us a little bit when we try to raise it. And after a final round of measuring, I'm just putting the holes in for the tap cons, so that'll secure the post bases and get them ready for when we raise the post frame. And here we are. So a couple of things I did. I added a bunch of gravel in that little, I guess, depression that we had so that we could bring in my neighbor's tractor. His is much bigger than mine, and I felt we'd have a better shot with it. One thing I didn't expect is that his tractor has bucket forks, not a full set of forks. And so there's those forks you kind of screw onto the end of the bucket. We managed with it, but the way they have the screws on there, they kind of got in the way. So I would generally prefer a straight up pallet fork as opposed to putting forks on the end of a bucket. So we did get it up a certain amount at a time, and then we would brace it. You can see those boards hanging at the top were the original braces that we used to keep it off the ground. When our other neighbors came, we got a couple of 4x4s going across the post frame, which gave us a better center of gravity balance. And finally, we were able to pick the whole thing up and set it in. Once we got it vertical, we had a lot of control over the sway of it. And so it took us about 3 hours from start to finish to get it up. And knowing what I know now, I could probably do that in about half the time. But a big shout out to my neighbors for coming by to help out. I really appreciate them. And yeah, this is where I'm at. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.